I'm recording this video immediately after the scorecards have been read out for Liam Smith versus Liam Williams. So at the time of recording, I haven't had the chance to see any of the post-fight interviews or post-fight commentary on the scorecards. I haven't seen anything, about the reaction to these scorecards. My initial feeling is that the scorecards were wide in favour of Liam Smith. Having said that, the commentary team, and Barry Jones is usually fairly good at reading fights, had Smith up, and even Gary Lockett in the Williams corner was saying that Williams was several rounds down after 10 and Smith appeared to win the last two. So whilst there's a lot of people who are on my Twitter timeline thinking this is very controversial, perhaps this is a fight we need to have a second look at, because even Gary Lockett seemed to be under the impression that Liam Smith had won. But anyway, the scorecards came in. One of the judges had it 114-114. One of them had it 116-112 in favour of Liam Smith. One of them had it 117-111 in favour of Liam Smith. For what it's worth, I had it 114-114 a draw, so I agreed with the first judge. That's despite the fact that I actually predicted Liam Smith to win in my pre-fight prediction. I actually scored the fight a draw. Look, when you score the fight a draw, that's because you believe the results would be a draw. You believe the fights would be even. But it was one of those where it was a draw, but I kind of felt if you had to give it to one guy, Liam Smith was the guy who possibly made the more convincing case. That's not how you score boxing. You score boxing on a 10-point must system on each round, and I had it 6 rounds apiece. So on my card it was a draw. But I wasn't surprised at the end when Liam Smith won the fight. You kind of got the impression watching it that Liam Smith was full of confidence, believed he was pulling away, and that the Williams corner were pretty dissatisfied with how the fight was going. It was kind of an odd fight to watch. It was a bit of a game of chess. Very, very, very different to the first fight. Possibly Liam Williams and what happened in the first fight, where he kind of got sucked into a bit of a scrap and kind of started to fade in stamina. Perhaps psychologically that made a big difference to Williams in this fight, and we didn't see some of the flashiness and snappiness and explosiveness in Williams's game this fight. Perhaps that was because he was trying to hold something back and make sure he didn't put everything into the early rounds and fade late in the fight. I don't know, but it was an odd fight. In many ways you kind of expected this, Liam Smith to be the presser fighter, Liam Williams to be the prettier, more sophisticated boxer from the outside, but that's not really how the fight was in reality. I kind of felt for large portions of the fight it was actually Liam Williams who was the guy looking to come forward and looking to close down the space, and it was actually Liam Smith looking to keep the fight at range and box from distance, which just really wasn't the kind of pattern that I was expecting here. The Box Nation commentary team made a very, very big deal over Liam Smith's jab. Potentially they overstated how deadly the jab was. I mean, you could have been lulled into thinking it was a Vladimir Klitschko style jab, but nevertheless the jab was a scoring punch from Liam Smith, and Liam Smith was also scoring to the body. I didn't think Liam Williams had the same effect from range in this fight as he did in the first fight. In the first fight I thought he was very explosive and putting really fast, snappy, hard combinations together. I didn't see that so much in this fight. I did think Liam Williams boxed really well at spells on the inside. He threw a lovely little uppercut on the inside. He was throwing a lovely lead left hook up close. Almost, it kind of reminded me of some of the stuff that Adrian Broner does, where he'd kind of get inside the pocket, almost touch his gloves against the other guy's glove and then throw a short left hook and then an uppercut. I thought he boxed really nicely on the inside, and I thought he used angles quite well. Sometimes you'd see him put the shoulder in to make the space and then lean up with the uppercut. So I thought Williams boxed really well from the inside and was probably the better fighter of the two on the inside, but I just felt, surprisingly, that Liam Smith maybe was the better man from the outside in this game. And despite the fact his jab may have been overstated by the Box Nation commentary team, I did think the jab cross combination of Liam Smith and the regularity with which he was establishing those were real important scoring shots. I think I actually had Liam Williams slightly up after 10. I I think I had Liam Williams edging the fight after 10 rounds, but I did feel Liam Smith came on much stronger in the last two, and I thought the last 2 rounds were very, very clear Liam Smith rounds. And watching this fight, you did get that impression that Liam Smith was a very tough, very strong, very fit guy who was rallying late on the fight, and was coming on the stronger of the two. It's kind of an odd fight to watch, really. I had it very tight. I think the first 4 rounds in particular were very, very hard to score. And, I was seeing people on my Twitter having Liam Smith well up after 4, seeing people having Liam Williams winning every round after 4. I did think it was touch and go, but my impression was that in a fight where the momentum kept swinging back and forth, Liam Smith ended the fight stronger. Liam Smith had the better long-range work of the two, and I thought if anyone was getting hurt and if anyone was fading in there, it was Liam Williams. Having said all of that, I did think Liam Williams was very effective with the uppercut, very effective on the inside, and made a decent effort in the fight. As I say, on my scorecard, 114, but I do want to watch the fight again because clearly this is a fight people have seen in very, very different ways. And, being frank, I'm not going to come here and say I found it an easy fight to score. I did find myself struggling to pick a winner in several of the 12 rounds. And obviously, when you've got a close fight, if you choose to score a round a different way, it can make a huge difference on the scorecard. So there we are. It's kind of an intriguing fight to watch, kind of an enthralling fight to watch, but a fight that didn't really catch fire, and potentially a fight where Liam Smith's experience at the higher level and Liam Smith's battle-testedness and toughness stood him in quite good stead. I suspect there's going to be some controversy here. I suspect, I saw a lot of people saying that the commentary was very biased. I'm not 100% sure I agree with that. I think sometimes people leap too quickly to use that B word, bias. Just because someone sees the fight differently to yourself doesn't necessarily indicate that they're an idiot or necessarily indicate that they have some sort of bias. Liam Williams is is a big fighter in the Frank Warren stable. He's a guy who's been deemed a future world champion. I don't think there's any deep plot to do Liam Williams wrong. It's probably just that Barry Jones was seeing the fight differently to a lot of people on Twitter, but he was certainly seeing it similar to 2 of the 3 judges and to Gary Lockett, based on Gary Lockett's comments in the corner. And Gary Lockett, as you know, is Liam Williams' trainer. So I want to watch the fight again. Maybe it's one I'll see differently on second review, but my initial instinct was it was a fight that could have gone either way, and it was a draw. So there you go. Credit to Liam Smith. He likely puts himself in a position now to fight again for the WBO title. Don't know who that will be against, because I think Miguel Cotto's retiring from the sport, from what I hear. You never know. This is a fight that could happen a third time. Both of the first 2 fights have been controversial. Both of them have been close. But with Liam Smith winning the first 2 and with this one kind of failing to catch fire, maybe that trilogy is perhaps a little bit less likely. So we'll have to see. On the undercard, I did watch the Nathan Gorman fight earlier. Nathan Gorman won by 5th round KO over previously unbeaten Mohamed, who was 13-0. Gorman's performance was okay. He won every round against Saltby and stopped him in the 5th. Gorman came out and seemed to be putting a higher work rate and punching with mean intentions in the 5th. He seemed to kind of put his foot on the gas in the 5th round, and when he did that, he was able to get Saltby out there quite quickly. And Saltby looked relatively schooled and relatively comfortable in the first 4 rounds, but didn't really do anything, didn't show too much ambition, didn't seem to have much of a game plan to win the fight, which is very disappointing for an unbeaten fighter who was 13-0. And when Gorman started going for it, Saltby really faded quite quickly, so it wasn't overly competitive. Gorman, he looked okay as he looked against Dominic Akinlade. He looked okay against Dominic Akinlade. But some of the promise that he showed in his early career, some of the visual impression you were left with in his early career, does seem to have dropped off a little bit now he's stepped up to this kind of level. He's still winning fights, winning them clearly and winning them well. But, maybe I was a bit too quick. The guy's got fundamentals. Maybe I was a bit too quick to think that this is a guy who was definitely going to get to a top class level in the sport. He is relatively green. I think he's had 11 pro fights in a very, very limited amateur career. So he is relatively green. But for me, there's a few things that need to be worked on in the game. It's still quite early. One of the things I do think needs to be worked on is conditioning. He's coming in very heavy to these fights. He was 18 stone, and he's not the biggest heavyweight. I think he's about 6'2", 6'3". He's coming in very, very, very fleshy. You wonder if he was coming in more like 16 and a half, 17 stone, if he'd be a bit quicker, a bit more explosive. It may make him just look a bit more dynamic in general. I also thought tonight he kind of fell a little bit in love with certain punches. He landed a great uppercut. I think it was either in the 4th or 5th round. And you looked at him trying to duplicate that uppercut time and time again after he landed it. He also had some success with the lead left hook. And he was trying to walk Saltby onto it and time Saltby. But it meant that he was really negating his jab. And the jab is one of Nathan Gorman's best bits of work, especially when he doubles it up. It's a real snappy, good weapon. But what we saw in this fight, to be honest, was him throwing the lead left hook time and time again. And it was predictable. It was telegraphed. It was coming so regularly, the opponent knew it was to be expected. And I didn't really see that having much effect. Yet when he actually went back to the fundamentals and threw the double jab, it was landing effectively. So I felt he fell in love a bit with the lead left hook. The swinging, slappy right hand, the sort of over-the-top uppercut. Nathan Gorman is at his very best when he throws hard body punches off the double jab. Jab, body punch, drop levels, change levels. I think that's when he's at his very best. And we saw that in this fight. When he threw the jab, it was effective. It was instantly effective. When he went to the body, you could see it was landing. It was accurate, it was hard, it was snappy. Yet he wasn't doing that with enough regularity, and instead he was doing these sort of lead left hook, right hand swing, over the top uppercut. And when the uppercut did land, and I think it landed once in the fight, it looked like an excellent punch, and it was an excellent punch. But was it really worth throwing 10 to land 1? I'd have rather seen him throw 10 jabs and land 7. I think that's the kind of fighter Nathan Gorman needs to be. As he steps up in levels, he's going to win fights because of his fundamentals and because of his technique, for my money. So, yeah, perhaps no need to rush him. He's only 21, limited pro experience, very limited amateur experience. Perhaps he needs to be kept at this sort of level, the Akinladi and Saltby level of the world, for a little bit longer, because there's still things for him to work on, definitely. But yeah, all in all, an okay card on Box Nation tonight. I sense that the Liam Smith-Liam Williams fight will be the source of much controversy. The scoring did seem wide. For one of the judges to give Liam Williams only 3 rounds did seem harsh to me. I gave him 6 myself. I find it hard to see you giving him less than 4 or 5. I thought he had enough spells of effectiveness in the fight to merit that as a minimum. But there you go. Over on Channel 5, I did watch Josh Taylor versus Miguel Vasquez. I thought this was a potential banana skin for Josh Taylor. He handled it very, very well. Let me say, I don't think Miguel Vasquez at this stage of his career is an elite fighter, but I do think he's a world level fighter. And I do think he's really not far from being a world title level fighter, Miguel Vasquez, even at this stage of his career. Now, don't get me wrong, he's no Terence Crawford, he's no Victor Postol, he's no Julius Ndongo. I'm not saying he's in that class, especially not at 140, but for me, he is the kind of guy who, could pick up a world title in a weaker division, a world title in a weaker sanctioning body, top 15. He's the kind of guy who could pick up a world title here and there. He's that sort of level. He's probably top 10, top 15 in the division. And to be fair, Josh Taylor, who's still very young in his career, has handled him very, very well. For me, this was the biggest fight of Josh Taylor's career by far. It was actually, in terms of form in the book, a real step up from Ahara Davis. You know, Vasquez has mixed it at a very high level with regularity, and he's a very awkward, slippery technician. Very, very awkward, incredibly long arms, incredibly gangly. I've seen him be very negative and very defensive in fights before. He wasn't so negative in this fight. He was kind of looking to rush in and throw awkward combinations. Even his punch construction's quite awkward. He throws a lot of looping punches, almost like uppercuts to the body, and you know, very, very unorthodox type fighter. Josh Taylor timed him well, and he stopped a guy who'd never been stopped before. You know, this guy's been in with Bradley, this guy's been in with Canelo, this guy's been in with all sorts of different fighters. Mickey Bay, you know, anyway, and you know, Josh Taylor stopped him, and Josh Taylor looks the real deal. He's a very, very, very big unit for 140. He's an excellent body puncher for 140. He's clearly very, very, very heavy-handed, and he's a real guy who can box and punch. I've said this before on the channel. I don't think he is a million miles away from being an Errol Spence type fighter. You know, rangy guy, long guy, southpaw, but who can switch hit. Really quite a good boxer from range, but someone who is at his most comfortable when he can step into that engine room, and despite his big frame and long range game, you know, step into that mid range, get his work off, combinations to the body, changing levels, pushing opponents back. You know, I think that's when he's at his most comfortable, and potentially that's actually when he's at his most deadly. You can see the guy is naturally heavy-handed. His placement of shots, his array of shots, very, very impressive. And Miguel Vasquez, very tough fighter, never been stopped in with all of those guys. He was in a bad way after taking Josh Taylor's body shots today. With Miguel Cotto out of that division, with Terence Crawford out of that division, you know, with a lot of these guys left, Terence Crawford victims, you know, the likes of Indongo, Postol, Felix Diaz, you know, they've all been well beaten by Terence Crawford. You just wonder if the stage is set for a new guy to enter the division and make some serious waves. And let me say, based on tonight's performance, Josh Taylor, very, very much that guy. I think the performance he put in tonight was World Championship caliber already. I think he'd win versions of the world title based on that performance. I'm quite confident behind that. And yeah, Josh Taylor, real good fighter, improving fighter, and it's going to take a very, very good guy to beat him. If he fights Ricky Burns, I think you know, he will beat Ricky Burns with a lot in hand for my money. Let me know your thoughts, guys. You know, I'm not going to ramble on for ages in this video because it's late. I need to get some sleep. I'm going to plan to get up early tomorrow and watch the Eddie Hearn card in the States. You know, so I want to get some rest tonight. But yeah, leave your comments in the section below. Let me know your thoughts on all of these fights. I'm expecting some outrage on Smith Williams. I'm expecting a lot of praise for Josh Taylor. Let me know your thoughts on Nathan Gorman as well. Hit your comments in the section below. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, you haven't done so before, please do subscribe so you can check out all my other stuff. Many thanks indeed for tuning in.